So, Dan, thank you for being here for the first time on the All Bets Rock podcast. Truly appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, man, it's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, just a little backstory, just so people are, knowing why I'm having you on the show is I heard about you because you have a new project coming out. It's a stand-up comedy special, and I got a call to be a part of it. And we met and thought you were a cool ass dude. So here we are.
Thanks, man. I thought you were a cool ass dude too. The second I met you, I said, "Hey, how's it going?" And you said, "I have a concussion," and I was like, "This guy's awesome." The perfect introduction. So yeah.
Yep, yep. And then it was 2 days of, hey, how you feeling? And I'm like, rough.
But you powered through, man. Like truly, you wouldn't have known that you were dealing with such horrible head pain based on your performance because you absolutely crushed it.
Well, you guys made it easy though, because it was such a fun environment, and you guys had such a handle on everything, and it was just fun to be there and be a part of it and see how all of this works. And so, I guess before we even dig into that portion of it, my question is when did you realize that you wanted to be a comedian to begin with?
Oh man, it was a young age. I feel like I want to say like 13,
Oh wow.
pretty young. I feel like I have no other real skills or interests, and some would argue that I don't even really have the skills. uh, but yeah, it was. I mean, they used to play stand up on. I feel like Comedy Central is kind of like MTV in that like MTV used to play music and no
Mhm.
longer does. Comedy Central used to play like stand up back in the day, and I
Yeah.
don't think they do anymore. But yeah, I would like watch it all the time, and yeah, something about it just being able to entertain a room full of people with nothing but your own thoughts was really appealing to me.
That's funny that you bring that up because I never really thought about it that way, but you're right. Because I don't think they do stand up specials on Comedy Central anymore. Because as a kid, I remember watching Friday Night Stand Up
Yeah,
every Friday.
same dude. Every Friday, and I still remember like having this eureka moment when I saw Zach Galifianakis for the first time, and his Comedy Central presents. It ends with he says, "This is kind of weird, but all of my girlfriends formed a 12-piece a cappella group, and then they all come out, and it was just the weirdest thing I'd ever seen." And I was like, "Man, I didn't know stand up could be this," and I just that like kind of set off a light bulb in my head. I
Okay.
remember that
So
distinctly.
would you say that he's one of your inspirations then?
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and early inspiration, I would say him and Mitch Hedberg,
Oh
if you
wow.
remember him,
I do. Yeah.
were my two favorite. I saw Mitch Hedberg like 2 months before he passed at the Riviera Theater in Tonawanda.
I do. Yeah. I've been there a bunch of times.
Yeah, I saw him there when I was like 15, a couple
No
months before.
shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
So as far as that was when you were 15, so who do you find yourself being inspired by now?
as weird as it sounds, it's a lot of like my friends, I would say. My one buddy, Connor O'Malley, is one of the funniest people on the planet, I think. And he's just always like got some new project in the works and like does it all himself. He self finances everything, self produces, and I that kind of like that like work ethic kind of is like what pushed me to make the special myself.
Mm.
Also, yeah, like I had this idea for this stand up special, and for the longest time I was like waiting for somebody to give me the money to make it, and then finally I was just like, you know what, I'm sick of waiting, I'm just gonna do this myself. And I think like Connor was a big uh inspiration for me in that regard. But yeah, like just like stylistically who I'm inspired by nowadays, I don't know, man. It's kind of like weird. Like it's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of stuff I loved growing up. Like I love Jackass was very formative for me growing up,
Yep.
and like which is kind of like without giving too much away, like your appearance in the special is kind of like um, I guess we could call it a stunt of sorts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, not to the extreme that you're used to, obviously, but like, you know, it that definitely is like kind of my jackass influence coming out. And I thought that was very important as I wanted a little element of that in this.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to give too much about it away either, but I'll just say that we did a run through that we ended up changing because after you got a little knocked in the head, maybe we should change something about this so that we don't have to keep doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, man. I mean, I took one of those blows to the head and I was dizzy for like 15 minutes and I was like, if I have to do 8 of those in a row, I'm going to be out of commission. I'm not going to be able to remember my jokes. So it made me, I mean, like, I have so much respect for you just like taking blows like that all the time. I don't know how you do it.
Well, after a while, I think people just say that we're stupid. That's yeah,
That's the simple answer, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's stay on the special real quick since we're already kind of talking about it. With I don't want you to give too much of it away because obviously it's not out yet. But do you have a release date for it yet?
Not yet. Probably early next year,
Mhm.
early 2024, I would say, but not an exact release date yet.
So, where did the ideas start to come from for this? I'm not sure how much you want to give away about it, but whatever you feel comfortable telling the listeners, like by all means.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you guys a little bit. We filmed it at the high school that I went to in Amherst, New York, and uh, the audience is comprised entirely of teenage boys, which I think I thought of this idea maybe like 5 years ago. I was like, if I ever do a special, I want it to be special, and I want it. A lot of my humor, like, you know, Jackass came out when I was like 10, 11, and like that those were like such formative years for me that I really um I wanted I wanted the audience to be like a bunch of me, you know, 15-year-old me's, and
Hmm.
that's kind of what they were. It was very surreal doing my normal set and looking out at a bunch of 12 to 18-year olds. I was like, man, this is crazy. But yeah, that's kind of the premise. A lot of my stand up is relates to like being in high school and stuff and just doing dumb things, kind of stunt like things.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, I think it was this very like full circle moment being back in my old high school. It felt very strange, but like my old choir teacher was like the guy that unlocked the building for us both days, and so that was kind of surreal. And I asked him, I was like, "Hey," he was just hanging out. I was like, "Hey, man, do you like want to make a little cameo in this? I mean, you're here." And he was like, "I would be honored." So that was kind of cool. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the general gist of it. I know that's very hard to picture, but I promise you listeners it's going to be good.
Oh, it's going
It'll
to be great. I mean, obviously I was there, so I saw it, and it was hilarious. And I think the cool thing is watching all these kids because they're filtering in, and like you said, there's like big age ranges between these 12 and 18-year-old kids, and they're like all different walks of life, and they're into different things. You could tell by the way they dress and the way that they act, and and they didn't know what they were getting into. Like they had no idea. So
like
once you got up there and you started rolling, like seeing some of their faces was just hilarious. And I
yeah,
think people are gonna dig that.
we got some great reaction shots for sure. Yeah, what just the moments where they're like, I think it took them a while to like digest what was happening. Even like we really did not clue them in at all, and
Yeah.
I didn't like. I think it's fair to say I'm a bit weirder than most stand-up comics. So even even if they were expecting a stand-up comedy show, I think it still was weirder than they could have predicted.
Yeah. I especially liked when you let them ask you questions.
Oh yeah,
That cracked me up because some of these kids were just like, "So who do you know?"
yeah. I was like, who would impress you as like to say that I know, and they were just like, "Do you know Captain America?" I'm like, "No, I don't know Captain America. Sorry." And they're like, "All right, not impressed."
What a cool thing for you though is to have this idea and then finally make it happen. So like when you got there and you actually started filming it, like you mentioned a couple times how surreal it was in those moments, but just for your own personal satisfaction, that had to be such a big like finally, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was the special itself was months in the making, but
Mhm.
I've been doing it for 11 years at this point, so
Wow.
11 and a half. So it kind of felt like, this is kind of a culmination of the last 11 years, 11, 12 years of my life. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
no doubt. So before, the comedy special and all that stuff, and if I have this correct, which I believe we talked about this, you were a writer for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. I was
So how
there
did that
for
come about?
So it kind of came about very unexpectedly. I was performing at this comedy festival in Montreal called the Just for Laughs Festival,
Mhm.
and I guess every year they call it the New Faces of Comedy. So they have like 20 different comedians that are supposed to be like, these are the up and coming, these are the up and comers
Yeah.
basically. And the booker for SNL saw me at that festival.
Mhm.
Not to toot my own horn, had a great set. So then, based off of that, they brought me in to like audition for the show. So a couple weeks later, I'm in 30 Rock. I'm
Mhm.
like in a dressing room. I'm like, what? I don't know what I'm doing here, but I got nothing else going on. I guess I'll just audition for SNL. And then they bring you out. It's very like, I wasn't really nervous until they like brought me out, and they bring you out on stage, like where the host does the monologue usually.
Mhm.
And then they just say, "All right, go do your thing." And I kind of like, I don't know if you've experienced this like with wrestling, like kind of blacking out for a couple seconds when you're nervous. Like the nerves hit you when you get out there, and then you just black out for a few seconds.
Mhm.
That's what I mean. That hasn't happened to me in years, probably. But the first couple times I went on stage, I remember just having this out of body experience where I kind of blacked out and then came to. And yeah, that was kind of what it was like auditioning, because it was very, everyone's sitting off to the side, like,
Mhm.
and just you can't really see them, but you can see the outlines of them, and you can kind of pick out, oh, that's like Lorne Michaels, that's Fred Armisen, like
Mhm.
you know that they're people that you know and recognize, and it's
Yeah.
but then again, that audition went really well unexpectedly, and
Mhm.
they called me a couple weeks later, and then they were like, all right, well, you're a writer here now. They don't even like ask you if you want to do it. They're like, nope, you're right here now. So I was like, okay. It wasn't like a dream of mine or something I had been working towards. It just kind of happened out of the
Wow.
blue. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing this now.
And how many years was that?
I was there for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there. I got hired September of 2019, and then my first season there, COVID happened like a few months, probably halfway through the season. We got shut
Okay.
down for COVID. So that was an interesting time to be working there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, that had to kind of be one of those, you like you said, you weren't really working towards it. It wasn't a goal, but like you're working for Saturday Night Live, and like as a comedian, does like that's huge.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I can tell people my parents' age, and they understand and respect it. Like
Yeah.
other things I've done, like Adult Swim shows, like you can tell them I'm like working on this Adult Swim show, and someone in their 60s is not gonna know what that is. Or they're like, so what is that? Softcore porn? I'm like, no, it's a comedy channel.
You're like it can be sometimes, but not what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, I think like that was, if anything, like having that on the resume was like definitely uh, like a badge of honor, but just like a seal of approval. Not so much badge of honor, but like seal of approval. Like, yes, what you've what you've been working towards has like led you to this kind of prestigious comedy job, which is
Mhm.
cool. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the Adult Swim stuff for a minute, because kind of the same question. Like, how did you end up getting involved with that?
So, my buddy Joe Para, who I went to high school with, another Buffalo boy, very funny comedian. He just put out a special on YouTube like a week ago. It's
Mhm.
called Slow and Steady. Very funny. Definitely check it out. But he and I grew up together, and I met him at Lasertron when I was 10. You know Lasertron, of
Oh yeah,
course.
oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. If you're not from Buffalo, folks, Lasertron is the premier laser tag establishment, and I had went to so many birthday parties there from the ages of 8 to 12, and can't say enough great things about the place. But
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
met him at Nick Johnson's birthday party when I was 10, and we sort of like have a very different comedic sensibilities, but it kind of works. He's very soft spoken and quiet. I'm a little more animated and crazy, but we started writing stuff together when we were in high school and then in college, and then started a stand up show in New York
Mhm.
um, in 2012. And then he wrote and pitched this show to Adult Swim. And I'm very fortunate to have forged a friendship with him 15 years earlier, and he hired me just based off of that.
Wow. So you mentioned that SNL is kind of like a seal of approval, but Adult Swim is a big deal. Because I mean, especially for our generation, because that was for us, you know.
Totally.
So like people in our age range are gonna go, holy shit, Adult Swim, and like so that's kind of like the equivalent of the previous generation saying, oh, SNL, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It just shows you how much times have changed, you know, to go from like SNL to Adult Swim, and it's like two different generations are both going to tell you that that's equally awesome.
Yeah. Definitely. And I was to be fair more psyched on the adults on the Adult Swim stuff, but yeah, it's funny. I think the like I said, like my parents thought it was like the Playboy. Like when you say Adult Swim, they think it's like the
Yeah,
Playboy channel or something.
that's funny. Now, so just staying on just doing stand up in general, do you have any places that you consider like your favorite places to perform?
Yeah, the Bell House in Brooklyn. Joe and I still do a show together there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love the Bell House. I also have a weekly show at this place in Williamsburg called The Gutter. It's a bowling alley that has this really great room in the back, and I love that spot. Where else? Union Hall in Brooklyn also I really love.
Mhm.
I don't do the traditional kind of comedy clubs too often, uh, just because I feel like typically they're not as receptive to someone screaming about their foreskin. But
I thought you were going to say because they're below you.
yeah, I'm too good for that shit. Yeah, the seller's
I,
always ringing my phone, begging me to come perform, and I'm like, yeah, talk to my agent. Um,
you're like, you know, I worked on Saturday Night Live, right?
yeah. Oh, man.
So let's get just a little bit off topic here for a minute, because part of the reason why I met you is because growing up you were also a wrestling fan.
A little bit,
Yeah.
I won't say I was an expert by any means, but
Mhm.
we had one TV in the house, and if my two sisters didn't, you know, overrule me, I'd flip to WWF every now and then.
So
But yeah,
when you were watching it back then, as would you say more like an occasional fan?
occasional for sure.
Um, did you have like favorite wrestlers, or did you just not care? You just because it was on, it was on.
I mean, this would have been the years where this would have been Stone Cold Steve Austin's heyday, I feel
Mhm.
like. And, you know, I think he was probably everyone my age would have said that he was their favorite at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
He was the guy for a while, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I get that. Again, straying from comedy for just a second. Are you a fan of horror movies?
I am. Yeah.
So, with it being spooky season and this coming out next weekend, from the time that we're recording this, it's going to be very close to Halloween. What are some of your favorite horror movies, or what recommendations might you have for some of our listeners? Because it's a big horror podcast.
Yeah. I mean, the ones that I've been watching a bunch recently, I think my favorites that I've watched in the last couple of weeks. Have you seen this one, Talk to Me? It's this Australian horror film that just came out.
I did.
Yeah, I really dug that one. I thought
Yeah,
it
that
was
was.
like really unique. The acting was really good too. Just I've seen a lot of possession stuff, but I thought
Mm,
that one had a really cool take on like the possession genre.
yeah. So, you've seen a lot of possessions in person or on film?
You know, I'm trying to get someone to invite me to an exorcism really bad. If any listeners are happen to be Catholic priests, please hit me up. I'd love to see one in person. I haven't seen the new Exorcist movie yet, but that's on
No,
my
I haven't.
list.
Yeah, I haven't either. I haven't either. But so we got Talk to Me, the new Exorcist is on your list. What else? What else you want to recommend?
Let's see. Um, I love Clive Barker. I mean,
Mm.
I'm sure your listeners have already seen, you know, Hellraiser and Nightbreed.
Oh, I
Also
love Night. Oh God, underrated movie.
underrated. I would say also not movies, but like his. I'm not much of a reader. I really
Mhm.
am not. But Clive Barker's books are really good, and he has this book called The Damnation Game. That's kind of like a uh, horror fantasy book. That's really really good. And then what else? If I could I possibly recommend?
Even if it's a classic, throw it out there.
Classic. I mean, Blair Witch Project, I think, is so. I mean, I remember it coming out.
Mhm.
I was like probably 9 or 10 when it came out, but I remember that there was so much talk about whether or not this was real, and I remember seeing it a few years later, and just the whole way they made that movie is so
Mhm.
inventive and just not really having a script, just kind of giving the actors sort of like places to be and like tasks for the day, and that ending is still one of the most haunting endings in a horror film, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
agree.
I one time my wife went out of town and I watched Blair Witch Project and Rosemary's Baby back to back. And I also ate an entire pepperoni pizza by myself, and I could not sleep that night because I was so scared and so sick to my stomach.
You know, I'm just like thinking in my head, like I don't know which part was worse for you, the fear of being by yourself, or what your stomach must have felt like.
It was a beautiful combination of both, I think.
I remember when Blair Witch came out too. I was in eighth grade, or eighth or ninth grade, and I remember watching it then, and it freaked me out because, like you said, there was people were like, "Is it real? Is it not? Whatever." And I never saw it again until a month ago. I watched it a month ago and was like, "This is really fucking good." It
Yeah.
really like hit me how good it was because I haven't seen it since. And I was like, "Why have I put this off?" Maybe it was because I saw it when it first came out and it scared the shit out of me. I don't know, but for whatever reason, I just never watched it again. And now I'm like, that's going to be on the rotation every year.
Yeah. I have it on VHS, which I feel like is the correct format to watch that movie on. But
Right.
I mean, the other cool thing they did was they put out like they had like a fake website and stuff with all the like, fake news stories about the
Yes.
Blair Witch, and it kind of added to the lore of the movie, which kind of
Yeah.
like, added to the believability of it too, which is like so cool. I don't think you could pull that off nowadays
No,
at all.
no. Yeah, no, not with social media and all that stuff. And then somebody would always be posting like, "That's my next door neighbor. They're still there. I'm looking at them right now."
Exactly.
I remember when those actors came to accept like an MTV Movie Award or something, And that was the first time I realized it wasn't real, because they came out to like accept the award as the actors, and I was like, what the fuck? Like my my mind was like blown.
Didn't they go into hiding or something after, like,
Yeah, they
for,
did.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
so nuts.
they must have. That's dedication, is what that is.
Yeah, commit to the bit for sure.
Right, right. So back to comedy. If you had to give me a Mount Rushmore of comedians, could you do it?
Ooh, personally, my personal Mount Rushmore.
Yep. Hmm.
Okay, I mean, I would put Zach Galifianakis on there. Uh, gosh, maybe Sacha Baron Cohen. I would say, like, speaking of committing to the bit, I mean, he's the ultimate example of that, I think.
Hmm.
And just to be able to stay in character and stay funny in those high pressure, tense situations. I mean, there's so few people that I think that are able to pull that off. So I definitely put him up there. There's four people on Mount Rushmore, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so that's two.
Can't pick yourself.
I wouldn't. I don't even like myself that much. I would maybe more of a recent one. I do love Eric Andre. I would maybe consider putting him up there. And then, ooh, you know, maybe, gosh, it's a tie between like Tom Green and Tim and Eric. Maybe, I don't know. Uh,
Well, you just added more to Mount Rushmore there.
yeah, we could. There's room for a few more heads up there. I think. Why haven't they added anyone? I mean, it's been a while. They might as well update Mount Rushmore.
We should get a petition going.
Yeah,
A couple more.
let's get Lemmy up there.
All right, now we're on the same page here.
Yeah, I knew you'd be into that.
Yeah, I'm down with that. All right, so this next thing that we do here is kind of like almost like a lightning round kind of thing, where I'm just going to ask you some just random questions, and this
Okay.
is just for the listeners to just get to know you. So this is the getting to know Dan Licata portion of the show. As
Okay.
if we haven't been just talking about you this whole time. Now we're going to get to know random things about you.
Okay.
All right, so first question that I ask everybody is New York or Chicago style pizza?
New York.
Good answer. Favorite
Although,
TV show? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, sorry. Although, I mean, we're both Buffalo boys. I feel like Buffalo does not get mentioned in the great pizza conversation, but I think Buffalo has some of the best fucking pizza out there.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If you give me a New York style pizza and a Chicago style pizza, Buffalo will beat them both.
And it's like it's geographically midway between those two cities, and I feel like the pizza kind of reflects that. It's like
Right.
a little thicker than New York, but it's not like a bowl of. It's not like soup in a bread bowl like Chicago style. So
Right. Exactly.
yeah,
I agree. I agree. So favorite TV show?
Jackass. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
How about favorite cartoon?
Ooh, um, I really liked Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I mean, Adult Swim. That was I really. Oh, I would say Metalocalypse. I think edges out Aqua Teen Hunger Force though for me.
Oh, yeah. I don't think you had a wrong answer there. Whichever one you went with, that was going to be a good answer.
Yeah.
How about favorite genre of music?
Ooh, I I listen to various subgenres of metal and punk and hardcore. Uh, Lately, I've been kind of on a industrial metal kick for
Hmm.
some reason. I saw Godflesh a few weeks ago. I don't know if you know Godflesh.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And I went deaf for about 24 hours. It was incredible. But I've been listening to a lot of Godflesh related stuff lately. But yeah, of all time, uh, probably hardcore, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then
Hardcore punk. Yeah.
this next question then will be an interesting answer: drum solo or guitar solo?
Ooh. I gotta go with guitar. Something, yeah. I think of like those like Metallica and Slayer solos that are burned into my brain more so than any sort of drum solo. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with guitar.
All right, all right. So how about, would you take a log cabin or a beach house?
Ooh, log cabin. I'm not much of a beach guy, to be honest.
Same page.
Yeah, I think because we're from Buffalo, I kind of like the cold. I love spooky season. I would love to be like a Unabomber in the woods that doesn't hurt anybody, if that makes sense. Just minding my own business. If I'm
Yeah.
mailing a letter, it's just a nice letter, or I'm not hurting anyone. But
All right, that's fair. That's fair. How about best stand-up comedy special you've ever seen?
um, I don't know if it's best I've ever seen, but the one that's popping in my head is Tim Heidecker put one out recently. I forget what it's called, but that made me laugh really hard. And uh, gosh, that's a good question.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
It's a tough one. Best of all time. Maybe Zach Galifianakis live at the Purple Onion. Yeah, I remember watching that on repeat, and he had those like little interstitial bits with his twin brother Seth Galifianakis, and I think those little interstitial bits were very inspiring because we filmed some interstitial stuff for this special, and I think I would have never thought to do that had it not been for him. So that's me stealing an idea from one of my heroes.
And admitting it, though. You
And
admit
admitting I fully cop to it.
If I had you pick a favorite guest on SNL, who would you pick?
Ooh, favorite host. Let's see. Both Johnny Knoxville and Tom Green have hosted. Tom Green's episode is very interesting, though. He definitely kind of took the reins a little bit and did some like anti-comedy stuff that like you could tell was not hitting with the audience. But like the whole episode ends with him like he says that he's gonna get married to Drew Barrymore at the end of the episode, and as the credits roll, he's just standing there waiting for her to show up, and she never shows up, and he starts melting down, and I love it. I know a lot of people hated it, but I love stuff like that kind of breaks the form.
Yeah. I could tell after doing the special with you that you enjoy stuff like that, which is cool though. I mean, why follow the exact blueprint all the time, right?
Exactly.
All right, this is going to be the last one, and it's a weird one.
Okay.
So you're going through the Bermuda Triangle. Are you going on a plane or a boat, and why?
Okay. I mean, I feel like if I'm going to the Bermuda Triangle, I've already made up my mind that I don't care if I'm ever seen again. So it's like might as well do it right. Do it on a boat. The plane is the coward's way out. If you're going to the Bermuda Triangle, I'm sorry if that offends any listeners, but do it on a boat like a real man.
Like a real man, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, so before we get you out of here, the last thing I want you to do is just I want you to plug your social media and let anybody know if you have any upcoming shows that you have. But if not, just at least get the socials out there and where they can find you so that they can go see you. And then when that special is ready to drop and you want to let everybody know where it's streaming or where they could see it, let us know and we'll get it out there.
Awesome. Yeah, you could follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dan Licata Sucks. That's my handle on both of those platforms. And if you live in New York or you're visiting New York, I host a show at the Gutter every Monday called Corn Beef. And I host a show at the Bell House with Joe Pera called the Dan Joe DVD Show. And the next one is actually on Halloween. So that'll be a really fun one.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. Yeah. And, just a reminder to all the listeners that regular comedy places are below you.
Yes. Only rock venues for me. That's it.
Well, cool, man. Thanks so much for being here today. I definitely appreciate your time, and it was great getting to meet you and have that little part with you. And anytime you have something to plug or something big coming up, let us know and come back on the show, and we'll do it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks again, Robbie. Great to see you again.
All right, man. I will catch up with you later.
All right. See you.